A boy was born who was destined to become a legend of the future, but at that very moment when he came into the world, his life did not begin with gifts and joy, but with pain and struggle. His parents lived modestly. His father was a hairdresser and his mother was engaged in astrology and different creative things, but the family had almost no money. The very moment of his birth was already a trial. The doctor made a mistake during delivery and damaged the nerves of the child's face. One side remained partially paralyzed, so little Sylvester immediately received a special mark from fate: a crooked mouth, slurred speech, unnatural facial expressions. This would become his greatest pain in childhood because children would laugh at him. He would speak in a way that few could understand, and all his life he would feel like a stranger in his own body. From an early age, he grew up wild, restless, unable to find a place for himself. He was sent to different schools, but teachers complained that nothing would come of him. He constantly lagged behind in his studies, read poorly, wrote even worse, and when he opened his mouth to answer, the words sounded so strange that even adults looked at him with pity and thought this boy would never succeed. Even his own parents did not believe in him. His father beat him more often than praised him, and his mother was too busy with her world and did not give him enough warmth. He grew up lonely. His main friend was imagination. He would spend hours inventing stories, fighting imaginary enemies, and dreaming that one day he would become a hero whom no one could humiliate when neighbor boys mocked him. He answered with fists and very often lost because he was weaker. But it was then that a fire appeared in his heart that did not let him break every defeat, only fueled his anger at this unjust world. At school, he was considered a problem child. He was expelled from lessons, laughed at for his looks and speech. Sometimes he even ran away from home and wandered the streets trying to escape from the pain that tore him inside. He wanted to scream to the world that he was worth something too, but no one listened, and then he began to write small stories and invent heroes who always won. It was in these invented worlds that he felt needed. As a teenager, he became interested in sports because he realized that only his body could become his weapon against humiliation. He began to lift weights, do push-ups, pull-ups, run up the stairs because he had no money for gym equipment. He trained like crazy sometimes to the point of blood and loss of consciousness. It was then that he felt that pain could be turned into strength and that no one would give him victory. He had to take it himself. His teenage life was full of conflicts. He was expelled from several schools, he had almost no friends, and even his family treated him as a burden, but he kept one desire in his heart: to become someone respected, someone who would prove to everyone that even with a crooked mouth and a broken childhood, one can rise and change everything. This inner rage and dream became his fuel in youth, while most teenagers indulged in entertainment. He wrote scripts at night, drew comics, and imagined that one day his name would shine on big posters in cinemas. He did not care that everyone thought it was nonsense. Even then, he decided that he would either achieve his dream or die fighting for it. After school, Sylvester decided that he had to become an actor. Although everyone around told him it was impossible, he had a strange appearance. His speech was funny to many producers and directors. He looked like a failed clown, but in his heart he burned, and no one could extinguish this fire. He entered college, but quickly realized that studies did not give him what he needed. He rushed into different places, looking for stages at least. Some roles, but almost always heard rejection. Doors closed in front of him one after another, and it seemed that the whole world was against him. He moved to New York, the city of opportunities, but for him it became the city of suffering. He lived in poverty, sometimes slept in movie theaters, sometimes in cheap hostels, and sometimes even on the street. He was catastrophically short of money. Sometimes he ate just buns or leftovers from cafes, and yet he tried not to give up. He went to auditions, but everywhere he was told that he was not suitable, that with such a face and diction he would never become a star. Despair overwhelmed him. He even sold his beloved dog, his only friend, just to pay rent, and then he felt that he had fallen to the very bottom. But it was at that moment of darkest hour that he decided he had no right to give up. He began to write his own script, a story that would reflect his pain and struggle, a story about a simple guy who gets a chance to prove that he is worth more. The world would later know this story as Rocky. His youth was no easier than his childhood, because although he had grown and his body gained strength inside, he remained the same boy who was despised. And often he felt that the whole world was against him when others dreamed of universities and brilliant careers. He had neither money nor support, and then, in his soul, an idea was born that if the doors to ordinary life were closed to him, he would break them down in his own way. He had one crazy desire. He wanted to become an actor. He wanted to see his name on the screen, even if everyone laughed at him, even if teachers said he would never make it because his face was crooked and his diction broken. He saw in this not a sentence but a challenge, and he began to go to every casting. He could find from door to door, from office to office. He knock, 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 and each time they told him, "No, your voice is unsuitable. You will never speak so that people will listen to you. You will never become the face of great cinema." But he continued because inside burned a fire greater than all refusals. He slept in cheap rooms, ate the cheapest bread, sold things to have a coin for transport, and went on. His heart beat only from the thought that one day he would become someone remembered, and you know it happened, that one day he even sold his beloved dog because he had nothing to pay for food. And that was the moment when he stood in complete despair. But at that very moment, he gave himself a word. "Will never give up, because if I give up now, I will betray all my pain, all my failures, all my path." And he lifted his head and went on, knowing that somewhere ahead, destiny awaited him that would change not only him, but the whole world of cinema. Sylvester felt that he needed his own chance. He realized that waiting for others made no sense and began writing a script that would become his ticket to big cinema. A story about a boxer who fights the whole world and victory is not given easily. He wrote at night on an old typewriter. His fingers hurt, his eyes teared, but he did not give up. Every line was a feeling of freedom. He imagined playing the lead role himself and felt that this was the only way to prove to himself and to everyone that he was worth more than the world seemed to think. When the script was ready, he dared to show it to producers. But the first meeting was a disaster. They did not like his voice, his way of speaking. They laughed at him. But Sylvester stood firm. He refused to sell the rights to the script for big money because he wanted to play the main character. Himself, he knew that if he refused now, his chance could disappear. But he could not betray himself, and his dream weeks turned into months. The search for a director and actors seemed endless. But finally, fate smiled at him. The director agreed, and the studio decided to take the risk and start filming. When the premiere came, Sylvester stood on the red carpet and felt that the whole path from childhood to this moment had not been in vain. People had laughed at him for years, but now they applauded. Standing, he became a star. In one night, he proved that, even with a crooked mouth and a difficult childhood, one can rise to the top and be recognized. His heart beat with pride, but he knew that this was only the beginning. His real struggle was still ahead, and every day he trained, studied acting skills so as not to lose the chance to become a legend. After a brilliant start, Sylvester faced difficulties in the 90s. His films did not have the same success as before. Critics often mocked his acting style, and some roles flopped at the box office. It was a time when he almost lost faith in himself and in his ability to return to the top. But Sylvester did not give up. He realized that true strength comes only after falling. He began working on himself more than ever, doing physical training, looking for new scripts and roles that would highlight his strengths. In the 2000s, he returned to the big game with films like Rambo, Rocky Balboa, and The Expendables. Each new role was a challenge, but he was ready for the fight. His body and spirit were forged by years of training and defeats. The audience loved him again, and critics began to recognize his talent and impact on the film industry. He proved that even after failures, one can rise and become a legend. Sylvester became a symbol that one must never give up. that pain and defeat are only temporary obstacles, and a true hero always keeps moving forward. His example inspires millions of people around the world, that even from a difficult childhood, poverty, and ridicule, one can create their own story of success. He not only became a cinema legend, but also proof that dream and persistence overcome all obstacles. Today, Sylvester Stallone is a symbol of spirit strength, persistence, and victory over circumstances. His life proves that even with a crooked mouth, difficult childhood, poverty, and ridicule, one can create a huge career and leave a mark on the world of cinema. He inspires millions of people around the world who face difficulties, because his example shows that no one is born a star. A star is made through struggle and the desire not to give up. Every day, Sylvester works on himself, continues to train body and mind. His story reminds that falling does not mean the end, that defeats are lessons, and pain is fuel for future victory. His name has become synonymous with resilience. Everyone who watched his films felt the power of his struggle, experienced his defeats, and rejoiced at his victories. He showed that it is possible to dream even when others laugh, that one can set goals that seem unreachable and achieve them if there is faith in oneself and a will to fight. Sylvester became not just an actor, he became a legend. His example inspires people to create their own success. Stories not to give up in the face of challenges and to find strength within themselves. His life is proof that it is never too late to start fighting that. Even from the hardest childhood, one can rise and become the hero of their own story.